The indications and the images that came out from Gaza showed that rockets were showering all over the place. It was not, there were a rate of 200 rockets a day. What does that tell?
Right, it was 1,400. It depends on what significance you want to attach to what you call rockets. At the end of the day, if you take the case of the attack on Gaza in 2008-9, they fired 800 projectiles. They killed 3 civilians in Israel. This time they fired 1,400 projectiles. They killed 4 civilians in Israel. It's about the same thing. As far as, you can make arguments about, well, it's because of Iron Dome that fewer people were killed, but there's just no real evidence for that.
Anyway,
if you take the top person in the United States who's very knowledgeable in the missile systems, Theodore Postal, he said that Iron Dome saved, in his words, at most several lives. Several is his words. So let's take away Iron Dome because it's not a significant factor. What you get is it was basically the same technology causing the same amount of damage as in 2008-9. The whole idea is what Israel calls to restore its deterrence capacity. And there the Israelis were absolutely upfront. If you look at every statement that was made by the Israeli government when it went into Gaza, it said over and over again, we want to restore our deterrence capacity. So what the ostensible goal is clear. The question is, what was the threat against which they wanted to restore the deterrence capacity? Was it the rockets? Well, no, I don't think that's very credible. You know, between January 2012 and November 2012, 1 Israeli was killed. They keep using the figure of 800 projectiles were fired. In fact, it was close, it's not important, but it was closer to 600 because the 200 others were fired from the day Jabari was killed till November 14th. So 600, 800, 1 Israeli was killed. And if you follow the Israeli political scene, nobody was talking about the rockets this past year. They were talking about Iran and foreign policy issues, and domestic issues. They were talking about the social inequality. I myself, I was absolutely surprised by the figures. I started to ask around to very knowledgeable people. I said, because I was going to appear on Russian television. I said, can you give me the background because I'm not really prepared? And all my friends said, well, we don't know the numbers either. Nobody knew the numbers because nobody was following it because it wasn't a political issue in Israel. The Hamas rockets from January to November. So we can set aside that that was the reason Israel went in. The reason they went in is, in my opinion, the reason they always go in, because the Arabs are getting too uppity, the natives are getting restless, and it's time to show the locals who's in charge. And Hamas was getting very, uppity in their eyes, and plus they had suffered a succession of foreign policy defeats, disasters, trying to rally the international community against Iran. And the climactic moment is when Netanyahu comes to the UN, holds up the picture of the Iranian bomb, and he's reduced to ridicule all over the world. Then Hezbollah sends a drone into Israel and says, we now reserve the right to enter Israeli airspace at our whim. The Arabs are getting out of hand.